Thank you, Larry, and thanks to the Washington Times for sponsoring this, and Al, thank you for allowing us to do and participate in conducting the straw poll. I guess the first straw poll I did was in 1986 for CPAC, and I remember the results almost caused a fist fight between Jack Kemp's people and Pete DuPont's people because they were wondering if the paper ballots were actually counted correctly. We've sure come a long way since then. And now, when we do the balloting, as you know, we now do it online electronically. So we're able to accommodate many, many more voters and participants than we did in the past. In fact, this year, we accommodated 2,930 voters, participants that cast ballots in the straw poll this year. And the balloting represented people from all 50 states and Puerto Rico. The balloting was conducted from 9 a.m. on Thursday. The polling places were closed at 1 o'clock today, but there were people standing in line, and so we still accepted them voting past a little past 1:30 this afternoon. So all of you that participated, give yourselves a hand, because it's you participating that makes this so good. As you can see on the slide that's up there now, the growth in the number of participants in CPAC straw polls has been significant over the past several years. While this year wasn't as great as previous years, it's really not surprising, because when you see the presidential straw poll results and how many people were cited in the presidential straw poll results, you'll see that at this juncture it appears that the conservative movement hasn't quite come to consensus yet on who their candidates might be. There are lots of choices out there. But that being said, we still had almost nearly 3,000 participants this year. And as in years past, the type of registrants that we have are usually students and individuals. And this year, we see the same pattern, where roughly 50-50 between students and individual in terms of participants and registrants that voted. When we look at it by age, and this, I think, CPAC, absolutely. I can tell you the first straw poll I did, there was not 52% between the ages of 18 and 25. And I think that is a huge, huge accomplishment on the part of CPAC to bring so many young people out and into the process and participate in an event like this. We do have a little bit of a gender gap, as we say in the polling business. However, this has always been traditionally that CPAC has always had more male audience or more male participants than female participants. So while it looks somewhat skewed, it's actually not that different than it's been from previous years. Having said that, let's get to some of the questions. So one of the questions we asked was, what are your personal core beliefs? What drives you? Is it you want limited government and you want government out of your life? You want to promote traditional values? You want to protect the homeland and strong national defense? And as you can see, for the several straight year in a row, the vast majority of participants in the straw poll are very much in favor of limited government, less spending, lower taxes. It is. We then ask whether you approve of the job the president is doing, boo, and whether or not you approve of the job Republicans in Congress are doing. And as you can see, last year, President Obama had a slight bump in his popularity among this group. This year, the numbers have gone back to where they actually belong, although I still want to meet the 2% that said they approve of his job in this audience. On the other hand, when you look at the Republicans in Congress, last year the Republicans in Congress were basically a 50-50 split. Now, they're a little bit better off this year than they were last year, but the truth of the matter is that still this group, or this audience here, these activists, still are not convinced that the Republicans in Congress are doing the job that they need to do. So for the congressional leaders, they need to pay attention to this. Then we asked some questions about the budget and how we should fix the budget mess. Well, shock and surprise, nearly 3/4 of you think we should accomplish it by spending cuts. But Surprisingly, 16% said we should raise taxes and cut spending. Obviously, they didn't hear Ann Coulter's speech about what happened the last 2 times we agreed to tax increases and spending cuts. We then asked the question on what folks thought about how we should handle the spending cuts under the sequester. And overwhelmingly, you all thought that we should do targeted cuts, not across-the-board cuts, as are presently being put in, because you don't want to see defense cut, military cut across the board like everything else. And now we get to a couple of more controversial questions. What do you think the U.S. role should be in the world today? And as you can see, half of you think that we should take a step back and let our allies around the world fend for themselves, whereas a little bit more than a third of us still favor a more muscular foreign policy where the U.S. helps provide defense for its allies. Interestingly, though, almost 1 out of 5 really are on the fence on this issue. So this issue is certainly going to play itself out over the next several years inside the party and inside the movement. Something that one of the speakers here made himself kind of famous on, and that is the issue of the use of drones, the federal government use of drones. And as you can see, overwhelmingly, you oppose using drones to target non-combatants who are U.S. citizens to either kill them or to survey them. But now we come to the numbers you've all been waiting for. Before I go to the next slide, I want to give you a little bit, got to build the suspense. I want to tell you a couple things. One is that there were 23 candidates listed on the survey. 23. We then gave people the option to write in people. You all wrote in another 44 people. When I tell you Dwight Eisenhower received a vote, I am not lying. So did Richard Nixon. Whoever wrote them in, they're not coming back and they're not running. But having said that, the write-ins went from everybody from Allen West to Condoleezza Rice to Judge Andrew Napolitano. But of those write-ins, none of the write-ins themselves received more than 1%. So while there was a whole bunch of write-ins, and we have 67 candidates that actually received votes in this this is the largest group of candidates I have ever seen in a CPAC straw poll. But that being said, I can tell you, when I turn the next slide, I can tell you ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN are not going to be happy because their favorite candidate did not come in first, but your favorite candidates came in a virtual dead heat. Coming in first with 25%, Senator Rand Paul. But right behind him, right at his heels, literally tied, virtually tied, Florida Senator Marco Rubio. And then you had Senator Rick Santorum at 8%, the media's candidate Chris Christie at 7%, and so on from there. And the 14% other, those were the individuals written in, the 44 individuals written in, that's what they equal to. So again, thank you Al, thank you Larry, thanks the Washington Times, and till next year, thank you all.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you all. Well, ladies and gentlemen, remain in your seats. We have our keynote speaker coming up, and I know all of you are here to listen to him. Thank you again for listening to our straw polls. They're a lot of fun. Thanks.